Hey, what's going on, folks? Welcome back into our wish list for the next farming simulator game, whatever it may be called. Farm Sim 22, Farm Sim Next, who knows? But whatever it is called, guys, this is our wish list of things we would like to see happen to the next farming simulator game. Now, of course, this is the second video. This is part 2 to this series. Go back, make sure you check out part 1. We've added to this list, of course, and with your comments in that first video, well, we've been able to add some things to part 2. There's also going to be a part 3, so make sure you guys drop down in the comments things that you'd also like to see added to the game. And for those who missed the Farm Sim show where we talked directly with Giants, it does sound like there is something in the works right now for the next Farm Sim game. So this is the whole reason we're making this video. This is the timing for this video. We need to start talking about some things to be added in, so maybe, you never know, though, check it out and hopefully add some of these features to the next game. And as well, folks, if this is your first time here, first of all, welcome and thanks for clicking the button today. If it's your first time here, make sure you guys go down to the bottom, hit that big red subscribe button. We're gonna have multiple videos on this topic, like I said, so you're not gonna want to miss any of this stuff. Make sure you slap that bell as well. But anyways, guys, let's dive into the list. And once again, in no particular order, let's start with a base Midwest map. That's right, in current Farming Simulator, in Farming Simulator 19, we started with a California map for North America. Didn't really make sense as far as farming goes. Don't get me wrong, California does have its farms, but when you think farming in North America, what do you think? Midwest, Ohio, Nebraska, of course. Why don't we have that? That should be a given. So hopefully for the next Farm Sim game, a base Midwest map is where we're at. Chances of this happening, I'm gonna give this 8K bots out of 10. Better overall physics. And what I'm talking about here, guys, is, well, the way vehicles and trailers and equipment interact together. The way things slide and move, and when you hitch up to something, when you jackknife something, the way that all happens. There's a certain aspect to the way everything kind of connects to each other, that physics options, that you really never know what you're gonna get. And it makes for some pretty hilarious times, to be perfectly honest, but it's hopefully this is not something that's gonna be happening in the next Farming Simulator game. Hopefully there's a more predictable option. When we connect something, we know exactly how it's going to work every single time. So is there room for improvement? Of course there is. How much of an improvement is it going to be? That's the question. So I definitely think we're going to see improvement. I just don't know how much. So chances of us seeing this, I'm going to give this 10K bots out of 10. Destructible environments. Now this is something that would be kind of interesting to see. We already have a little bit of this. You'll notice there are some signs that you can knock down. In Farming Sim 19, there are signs you can knock down. I would love to see them expand on that, maybe just gradually even, whether it be some maybe telephone poles, some guardrails. How about train crossings? Can we knock those down, please? Anything like that would be fantastic to see if we just hit something small, if we just be knocked down. Now, I mean, I don't expect us to be able to run into a building and it all knocked down. Anything like that, let's be honest, that's pretty far-fetched, and that's a long ways away for us. But if we can make some baby steps towards actual seeing damage on certain things we run into, I think that would be a good step. So, destructible damage. Odds of seeing an improvement on this? I'm hesitant. I'll give it a 5 out of 10K bots. Improved workers. I think this one goes without saying. This is pretty high up on the request list, guys. Is it possible? For sure it is. The AI in Farming Simulator is very basic right now, and I would love to see them expand that just a little bit. We've talked a little bit about this beforehand with other programs that run the AI. It'd be nice to see if they would just make it so it was simply built into this like this. Now, the way we currently run them, you never know what you're gonna get. Sometimes it works out perfectly. Other times they end up stopping on the first pass or end up in the woods. You just never really know. So hopefully this is something that gets improved upon in the next series. Odds of us seeing this, I think, are pretty good. I'm gonna give this 7K bots out of 10. Hired worker economy. Now, since we're already talking about hired workers, let's talk about a different way to think about them. Could we make it so they level up potentially? Maybe there's more to the hired workers than we currently use them now. Possibly you just have a day hired worker. You just go into town, you pick up that worker, and he works a field for you for the day. Or potentially, how about you have a part-time staff or a hired hand that you take in, and you need to actually supply lodging for them. You have to have a house on your farm for them. They stay in that, and they are a part-time employee, always employed by you to handle different tasks around the farm. I think that would be an interesting way to go with the hired workers, and as well, you can make them so they level up and get better at tasks. Interesting to see something along those lines. It would actually make it a little bit more realistic. Odds of us seeing something like this, not great. I'll give this one 3K bots out of 10. Turning off crops. This one would make perfect sense for when you're first starting off a map. You can select which crops you want to have on. Think about if you have a map in the Pacific Northwest or potentially over in the Midwest, you shouldn't really have access to sugarcane and cotton. Those are not things you should really be planting. They shouldn't grow there. This is a way of doing that. So when you first start off your map, you click which crops you want to have on, and then you go. those would not be available. You would never see those growing by other farmers in your fields. That would be an interesting way of changing things up just a little bit and making it just a touch more realistic. The odds of us seeing this, I'll give this 6 K-Bots out of 10. More crops. Now, since we're on the discussion of crops already, wouldn't it be nice to have a couple extra crops as well? I mean, there's quite a few more out there that we don't have access to in base game that are available on some mod maps and some mods that are expanding the game a little bit. Be nice to see an added in bonus to see some of these base game. Whether it be more root crops, there are some more grain crops as well. So hopefully adding these into base game will just make things just a little bit more different. Our chances of seeing more crops, we'll say 6 K-Bots out of 10. Improved forestry physics. Now, we've already talked about an improvement in physics in general. Forestry is a whole special case that I would love to see an improvement on. Hopefully we can see something where the logs just behave a little bit better with certain pieces of equipment. Things are just a little more user-friendly, that's all. There is a certain aspect to it that I think scares a lot of people away, and it seems to be most people have difficulties with it, so having a slight increase or improvement in the physics would be fantastic. What are the odds we're going to see this directly to forestry? I'm a little apprehensive, but I'll give it 6 K-Bots out of 10. Crop dusting. Once again, guys, another staple of farming in North America and the Midwest. Crop dusting would be an amazing way to be able to spray some pesticides down on our crops, and it'd be fun to be able to jump into a plane and fly across our fields. A totally different way of taking care of a task we always take care of. So hopefully this is something that makes it into base game. I am actually somewhat optimistic about seeing this in the next Farming Simulator game. That being said, I'm still only going to give this 4 K-Bots out of 10. Searchable menu screens. Now this, of course, is more for PC players, but this is something I would love to see, is just being able to type in what I'm looking for on any screen, whether it even be before the game for a mod or in-game for any of the items I'm looking for. I would love to be able to actually search for things by typing it in rather than going through a menu and doing a search. Just being able to type in certain items, especially when you get millions of mods, it makes life a lot more simple if we could just type in what we're looking for. What are the odds of seeing this? I think this is actually pretty good. I'll give this 7 K-Bots out of 10. The survival mode. Now this has been done, of course, in so many other games out there, but why not bring it to Farming Simulator? Make things a little bit more interesting, where you actually have to eat, you have to sleep, you have to drink, stuff you have to take care of yourself. I mean, you have to take care of your farm. Why not take care of yourself as well? Make it a little bit of a different change to the way you handle your farm, and always have that in the back of your mind that, you know what, you got to take care of yourself as well. So I think this is something that could be easily added in. Will we see this in Farming Simulator? I seriously doubt it, but you never know. I'll give it 3 K-Bots out of 10. Manure system update. So can anyone tell me exactly how the manure gets from, well, the pens into the pit? It doesn't make any sense to me how it magically appears. We have some magical manure fairy that loads it in there for us. So this is something I would love to see updated. I don't exactly know how we would go about doing it yet, but having another task that would involve moving the manure out of our pens into the pit for storage, I think that would make a lot of sense. Chances of us seeing this, I'm going to say, are pretty slim still. I'll give this one only 2 K-Bots out of 10. Animal herding. So once again, we've already spoken about, well, better animals. But wouldn't it make sense if we could actually move animals by just walking around, by opening fields and having them go down a set path somewhere to another field? This makes more sense, especially if we're using it for grazing. With the advent of seasons, having grazing options for animals and being able to have them move from field to field to graze on certain fields, that only makes sense. Not exactly sure on how that would all work, but having that as an option to be able to move animals directly from field to field and have a herding mini game of some sort would be an amazing way of doing it. I would love to see something like that, this implemented in some degree. I think there's a chance we might see this. I'll give this one 7 K-Bots out of 10. An update to placeable objects. So this goes along with, well, our terraforming update we spoke about before as well. Seeing a way of placing objects down on slopes potentially, so you could actually tilt things in a certain degree rather than always having to be flat. That might make things a little bit easier, but I think the whole system in a way needs to be updated to some degree. There are certain aspects to it that just don't work, as you're probably more than well aware. So hopefully we'll see a bit of an update to this system that will allow us to maybe change it so we can slope things on to certain degrees, or just make it more user-friendly and allow us to place buildings and objects exactly how we want. Chance of us seeing this? Once again, I think this is pretty good. I'll give this one a 7 out of 10. The odds of us seeing some kind of an update like this, I think are actually pretty good. I'll give this 7 K-Bots out of 10. Random events. Now this can go in pretty much any direction. You can go grandiose, or you can go just a little small. Now something small I would think would be maybe, well, tractors going on sale. a certain brand is on sale. There's a random event for you. Or how about something a little bit more extreme? A rock slide closed down a road by your farm and it's forcing you to go the long way around. You know what? There's a lot of different options, a lot of different ways we can go with this. We may talk about more of these ideas in the next video, but I think random events would be a fantastic way of just changing up, well, the monotony potentially of doing everything the same way every single time. So let's bring on some random events. Chance of us seeing this to some degree, I think is actually really good. I think we'll see some kind of a random event generator be brought into the next Farm Sim game. I'm gonna give this 9K bots out of 10. North American measurements. This is a relatively simple one, being able to change from liters to bushels. I mean, we can change miles and hours to kilometers per hour, euros to dollars, that kind of thing. But I think all of the crop measuring tools should also be shifted over to North American as well. Relatively simple. I think there's a good chance we'll see this. I'll give this one 9K bots out of 10 as well. Realistic fuel usage. Once again, very straightforward. I don't think we need to talk too much about this, but seeing the way fuel usage is right now, where your vehicle maintenance is almost faster than your fuel usage on most times, I think this would be something to be easily updated to make it just a little bit more realistic. It's very rare that you run out of fuel right now. So having that go a little bit faster, I think makes sense. We'll see what happens, but I think there's a very good chance we'll see this in the next Farm Sim game. I'm going to give this one 8K bots out of 10. Better crop textures. So this is somewhat of a complaint for some people, is the crops don't look as realistic as they could. There's been a few people that have reworked the crops to make them look more realistic. This is something we could definitely see in the next Farm Sim game as well. Seeing the way the crops work would be big on my book as well, is just the stages. Right now, the method in which they grow does not make any sense. If it was more of a gradual system, that would be a lot more realistic instead of having all of a sudden one whole field change at the exact same time. Would love to see that update come to Farming Simulator. Will we see that? That's a whole other story. I'm pretty pessimistic on this. I'm gonna only give this one 3K bots out of 10. Buildable, customizable paddocks. So this would be absolutely amazing. Just being able to drag and drop fences, maybe select a whole area in which your cattle pasture is. Being able to select an area where you're going to drag your fence around a field, and it's going to designate that area as well as the paddock itself. So your cattle pastures don't have to be relegated to just a small little area. You might actually have a whole field potentially that you could take and say that there is my cattle pasture right over there, or my horse field is going to be over there. And if we were to combine that with the herding option we spoke about earlier, this would actually totally change the way we treat animals, I think, in Farming Simulator. Now, what are the chances of us seeing this? I'm going to be a little bit optimistic on this. I really want to see this, so hopefully this goes through. I'm going to give this one 6K bots out of 10. Winches and tow ropes. So, farming in real life, well, getting stuck is pretty much a daily occurrence. It is a very large part about farming in real life. So, seeing that tow ropes are not a base game object, well, it's not really a thing getting stuck for the most part. So I think maybe that's something that should be brought in a little bit more in depth. Now we talked a little bit about this last episode, so hopefully this is something that can be brought forward, and there could be an actual use for winches and tow ropes to actually make you get your vehicles out when they get stuck. Hopefully that's something we can see. I think that'd be an interesting way to change things up a little bit, make it just one more step. Chance of us seeing this, I'm gonna say pretty slim. I'm only gonna give this one 2K bots out of 10. Cross-platform play. Yeah, not much else we need to say about this, guys. I think everyone should be able to play with everyone. It's possible, it is available out there, and we have it happen in Farming Simulator. Would love to see it. I seriously doubt this is going to happen. I have my reservations. I'll still give this 3K bots out of 10. So folks, that's part 2 of our wish list for Farming Simulator Next 22, 23, I don't know. Whatever it is, that is our second part of our wish list. So if there's something else that I have not yet talked about, make sure you guys drop it down in the comments below. We still got one more video to go through on this stuff, so maybe we'll put it into that one. If you have anything else that you'd like to talk about, drop it down in the comments as well. If it's your first time here, this is your first video, well, make sure you guys hit that red subscribe button. Like I said, more videos to come on this stuff, so you're gonna want to stick around for that. Other than that, guys, I hope you enjoyed. Slap the like if you enjoyed it, and I will chat with you next time. This is Clutch, over and out.